Let's be positive, shall we? If Arsenal beat Newcastle, they'll be 4-1-1 in terms of Premier League results, with the one draw against Man City from last weekend and the one defeat at Anfield to a wonder strike from Szoboszlai. That will be with trips to Anfield, Old Trafford, St James's Park all out the way, and will have played title rivals Manchester City at home. The following games then present an opportunity with, of course, the Newcastle away game this weekend, followed by West Ham at home, Fulham away, Palace at home, Burnley away, Sunderland away, and then it's Tottenham, the North London derby on the 23rd of November. That is a massive opportunity to build momentum ahead of that 12th game of the Premier League season at the Emirates against our rivals, and we always expect to win a North London derby at home. Now, some will say, James, one game at a time, we're learning a lot about this team, and I understand that. But where we're literally trying to build the kind of momentum that is going to keep Liverpool second guessing, that's going to keep them on their toes, and Man City and everyone else around there, you sometimes have to look a few games ahead. And I think you should be saying to the team, look at the opportunity. Look at what things could look like. Imagine if Arsenal's record after 11 games is 9-1-1. Imagine they win those 5 games in a row after beating Newcastle, if we can do that. And suddenly they're sitting there going, that's 6 wins in a row, that's 8 undefeated, and it's a sensational start to the season, despite the disappointment of not picking up a couple extra points here and there where we could have, and maybe there'd been opportunities missed. You'd look at that and go, wow. And this, more on that later, right? More on the opportunity that is there for Arsenal later. But I think it's really important that the club and the team start to look a little bit more long term and start to realise that there's an opportunity to put pressure on their rivals. But first, we have to beat Newcastle. And that's not easy to do. Where do they sit right now? 13th in the table after 5 games, just the 1 win with 3 draws, 1 defeat. They've scored 3 goals and they've conceded 3 as well, leaving a goal difference of 0 and 6 points on the board. Now, that doesn't make for great reading for Newcastle, nor does the fact that they've lost Alexander Isak, nor does the fact that they've failed to score in 3 of their 5 Premier League games, nor the fact that they've actually been jumping between a back 3 to a back 4. This was their 11 against Barcelona, a back 4, quite an aggressive formation, 4-3-3, trying to get stuck into them. But away at Bournemouth, they went for a 3-4-3. Injuries might have played a part, but jumping between the two isn't really ideal. And the 2 big home tests they've had have been Liverpool at home, Barcelona at home, and they've actually lost both of them. Arsenal present the 3rd big test of their season so far. And, okay, Bournemouth, of course, is an away test, but you get what I mean in terms of the traditional big clubs, and they haven't come out with anything to show for their efforts in those 2 games. All of that makes for good reading. On paper, sounds great, right? But I think if anyone actually watched those games, for those who have watched those games, I want to rephrase, Newcastle showed a lot of spirit. Newcastle showed a lot of aggression. Newcastle threw their weight around, and with 10 men came back against Liverpool to pull it back to 2-2. Slightly more disciplined defending, and they get an incredibly impressive point out of that. Against Barcelona, started the better team for the first 20 minutes. Very aggressive, did some good things. Barcelona settled into the game and won it, but there were some things from Newcastle that, you know, sometimes I wish Arsenal had a little bit more of. The pace, the aggression, the kind of full throttle nature of their football. And Arsenal might have to deal with a lot of that too on the weekend. And when it comes to these big games at St James's Park, you just don't know what you're going to get from them in terms of, you know, the actual outcome. But you do know what you're going to get in terms of energy from the fans, energy from the players. And a reminder, they've got quality on that pitch. Bruno Guimaraes, Tonali, Voltemada, I think, is someone that, when you look at the comps, right, it looks like they've signed a real player there. Anthony Gordon, Elanga's pace and beyond. There's going to be a lot of quality on that pitch. So for all the stats I've read out that suggest opportunity, go for them, Arsenal, we need to acknowledge that there's a lot to respect there about Newcastle, and they're not going to be easy. Let's talk about Arsenal. We'll talk about more on Newcastle in a little bit. Let's talk about Arsenal, because I want to give credit to Turkish, who spotted something that I actually think just captures who Arsenal are. I think this one thing that I'm going to show you that was a thought spark by Turkish, for me, captures everything you kind of really need to know about Arsenal a little bit at the moment, which is that in all the Carabao Cup games between Premier League opposition and League One opposition, Arsenal had the fewest shots of the Premier League sides, but the most possession. You look here against Port Vale, 11 shots from 81% possession. Newcastle, 27 shots, from 77% possession. Tottenham with 18 shots to 55% possession. City with 17 shots to 76 possession, and Chelsea actually outshot in their game, but 14 shots with 72% possession. Brighton were another team who won 6-0 against League One opposition, whose stats I didn't get there. But I just think that captures Arsenal's style of play. That captures who Arsenal are. They're a team who will have a lot of the ball, will control, contain. At no point against Port Vale did I think we looked in danger of losing that game or conceding a goal. I think we looked very comfortable, but we weren't particularly thrilling. And I actually think that little thing there speaks to our style of play. So fair play to Turkish for spotting that. I think it says a lot about Arsenal. So taking that into account, that is typically how we play games. We can contain, we can control. I think we're expecting to not really concede too many chances to a Newcastle side who've struggled to score goals. The question is, can we go and put that kind of pressure on them that makes them withdraw, that makes them drop deep? Because for all I've said about the stats about scoring goals, they've only conceded goals to, well, three to Liverpool, right? I don't think they've conceded goals in any other game in the league. No, they haven't. Drew with Villa, beat Wolves at home, drew with Leeds, and I think drew Bournemouth. So they've got 4 clean sheets, right? So they're not going to be easy to score against. But what we want to do is force them that way and force them to go back into what they're comfortable in. And then when that happens, we need moments players who are able to turn very little into something very big. And that's why I want to talk in particular here on the tactics pad about Eze and Nwaneri. And what we've got here is in the blue, we've got, actually I'll highlight it in yellow, but in the blue, we've got Eze's goals from last season. We've talked about this on the channel before. And in red, Nwaneri's. These are players who in this position, what we call zone 14, we'll show it in green. Oh, there we go, sorry. They are so productive from this area of the pitch, Eze and Nwaneri. So productive from this area of the pitch. And it's where games can be won through moments of quality. I've talked about Arsenal not only scoring from this area of the pitch more, but accessing it. If we talk about Zubimendi, I want passes into this area of the pitch from a Zubimendi so that Nwaneri and Eze, if they start, I hope they start, can create the kind of moments that will win us this game against a very, very stubborn defence and very stubborn opposition. Because you're not going to pepper their goal. You're not going to create chance after chance. You're not going to be threading the ball through the lines constantly, popping off shots here, there and everywhere. I can accept that Arsenal might not be at their most fluid best in this game. I'm not expecting the football to suddenly click against Newcastle. But I am hoping that if we are going to play a game of percentages, fine margins, that we have the players on the pitch that can turn the fine margins in your favour. When you look at the games we've lost to Newcastle, 2-0 at the Emirates in the Carabao Cup, we hit the post. We had another effort from a corner. We started that game quite well. Martinelli was through on goal, should have scored. But Isak makes the difference because he's a fine margins player who will make that go in your direction. We lost that tie 4-0. We weren't very, very good across both legs. But again, Newcastle had moments of real quality that gave them that edge and pulled them away in that tie. You look at when they beat us last season at St James's Park, an Isak header, pretty much the only thing Newcastle did, they went and won that game. Fine margins will be a part of this game. I don't see this being a 5-3, a 3-1 in any way, shape or form, but we need to have the players on the pitch that are going to turn the tide our way. They no longer have Isak, they've got other quality, I acknowledge that. Elanga, Gordon, Voltamada, sure. But Arsenal need to get their match-winning quality on the pitch too, especially when you look at this. These are the goals that Newcastle have conceded to Barcelona and Liverpool this season. Now, I know it's easy. It's a small sample size, and you know you can force some analysis sometimes. But if I highlight these moments here, sorry, let me just do that again. If I highlight these moments here, Gravenberch's goal, Ekitike's goal, Rashford's goal. These are shots from sort of distance in and around this same area that we highlighted in green before. That sort of zone 14 area. Newcastle are conceding some strikes on goal from that area of the pitch, and Arsenal need to work their best ball strikers into those areas so they can hurt them. So how do we do that? And this is where my analysis, so we don't know what Newcastle are going to do. They could easily play wing backs like this in a 3-4-3. They could easily go 2 up top I mean, they could do a few things, but I do think they're going to go actually with the 3-4-3. Actually, do you know what? I genuinely don't know what they're going to do. But either way, I think the task is the same, because I think trying to go one-on-one with touchline wingers onto their wing backs is going to be difficult, because they've got that extra cover out there that there's just so much more work to do for the wingers. I don't see that playing off. So what I want to do is get Saka on the inside, Eze on the inside, but crucially, Nwaneri in this pocket too, in and around Gyökeres. And what we end up with is something a little bit more 4-4-2. Now, Calafiori in the overlap would be great, because you push back their fullback. If you can go with the lines of 5, great. If Timber can be brave to make it a 6 for Arsenal, we have seen that before, that would be brilliant. Because again, you're pushing the fullbacks back, and Arsenal should, if they play a back 3 in particular, be able to control the midfield, because you're drawing their wingers / inside 10s, or wider 10s into these pockets, which isn't ideal for them, and Arsenal should be able to control the ball. But even if on just a couple of occasions we can unlock Saka in that area of the pitch, we can get Nwaneri here to strike on goal. Crucially, Eze, as I mentioned. I imagine Saka will play as a touchline winger a little bit, so I'm looking more Eze and Nwaneri. If we can access this area of the pitch, I really believe we can hurt them. I really, really, really believe that they can conjure up some kind of magic in this area of the pitch. And I only think it's going to take 1, maybe 2 goals. I really do. They're not high scoring at the moment, Newcastle. Our defence looks sublime. Now, yes, they might stick it on us and nick a goal or 2, but isn't that even more reason for us to have our attacking players on the pitch, so that we're not reliant on just 1 goal to maybe win it? But at the moment, I'm wondering where that 1 goal's coming from, because I think in 4 or 5 of our last 6 visits to St James's Park, maybe it's 4 and 5, I'm not sure what it is, we haven't scored. We struggled to score goals there. So we need the players on the pitch to do it. That is why my 11 would be, as you can see, Raya in goal, with Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Zubimendi, Rice, Saka, Nwaneri, Gyökeres, Eze and Calafiori. Will he go for it? I'm not 100% sure, but let's see. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What would be your 11 for this game? It's a massive game. It's a must win, and Shiro and I discussed why it's a must win on the Goonerverse podcast. But if you want just a clip of it, you want to see just that particular bit, click on this video here on the left to see what Shiro and I had to say about this huge clash at St James's Park. Catch you in a bit.